building with your path? I thought we were just supposed to create 4 diagrams and call it a day. Oh, wow. He also research the building and create it. Which is
All right. So in Rhino, type in, make a new file, do feet, inches, like a large file, right? File, new, large objects, feet, inches, press OK. Okay, now type in, oh, I'm going to save it. So then type in package manager so that this pops up, this window here. We're saying the same words right now. Okay. And then type in panel. I think it's one word. See how it says the first one is paneling tools? You click that. And at the bottom right here, you click install. You press the following will be installed. You install it now. And then you press OK. And then it says to restart Rhino. So now we close Rhino. You can make a new file, I guess, after the fact, but you close Rhino, and then you open Rhino back up.
No, I mean, was anyone in panel? Oh, I'm just. You guys are recording. You start recording. I'm just why y'all talking. I like hearing my voice in the recordings.
All right, so now this is going to get in my way. All right, so now everyone will notice that on their top window next to render, there's panels. So that is to not get confused. So panels are your windows here, right? That's what we populate the side ribbons with, etc., right? But now we have the paneling tool. Cool. What? Did you do the package manager thing? Oh, did you do the script one? But it says paneling tools. Oh, then that's fine. So this, yeah. All right, so if you have a Mac, the panel tool won't be there, but the paneling commands are still active. So you'll be able to follow along because it's the same commands. So then I'm just going to make a simple tile to start with. Yeah. So here's my it's going to make a fun little
shape.
Yeah.
Is this like example tile or like?
This is an example tile.
Okay, so we're like supposed to be using the already side.
Don't use your tile now.
Okay. Later. Yeah.
You guys can just make a simple square if you want to.
Cool. Simple square.
But I liked whoever had a random ball in their project. I thought that was cool.
That was Tommy. Now we have the
Cool.
difference. Variable. Let's do little choice.
Exactly. So if you have your simple tile, just making it look a little, yeah.
Actually, let's do 2 plus.
Oh my God.
There we go. Should have done this for my action. No, I'm making like better shapes now. That's where it's needed. Does it make putting in another box of it? I already told you this. Just put a box over there?
Yeah. I made this too complicated, but let me. This is my problem. I can't make anything simple. Okay.
It's gotta be cool. It's not cool.
Yeah. That's my problem. It's not cool. I'll just go back to my simple form with my little ball. All right, great. So here's my tile. I'll make it a new color layer. Great. So the way that this works is that there's 2 things that it needs to know. It needs to know a surface to reference, and it needs to know a point grid system. A point grid system is the individual objects are basically the corners to which it will panel and put multiple pieces onto. For example, if I go to paneling tool, create panel grid, and use array, I'm going to make a 2D point grid system. So the first thing says create grid base point. I will just click right here. And you guys see all these grids that it automatically set up. I can look at it in 3D. It's going up like a piece of like a staircase. So the reason why it's going up is because my Z offset is 1. If my Z offset is 0, they'll all be flat. So you guys know that you can click any of these options in the command center and you can type in what they need to be. So my offset spacing is 1:1. For the use of this demonstration, if I know that my tile is 2x2, maybe I'll use a spacing of number, direction, spacing. No, I want that to be 10. That's 2. There we go. So now it's 2 apart. So that was my V spacing. And my U spacing list number is 2. Okay. So the U spacing list number is 2. So that's 2x2s. I'm basically matching the tile grid. Do I want to make this a group when I'm done? Most of the time, yes. So if I press OK, here's my panel grid. If I click 1, it clicks all of them. I'm going to make a copy of this just to show you it as an example. And if I ungroup it, I also learned this new tool called a soft move. Which is allowing me to move just to show you how the thing is going to interact. So I made a 3D one and I made a 2D one. The cool part about the 3D one is that I made it fun, right? So now if I go to the panel tools, I'll press save because I'm crazy. What? Soft move. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, what's the first command you did for dots?
Array.
Array.
I'm also going to make just a 2D rectangle with a
Yeah, you make a dot first.
circle in it. Correct.
I mean,
I made it like 10. Everything's basically 10 and ones, except the Z is 0. So the U direction, instead of 1, I made 2. But the default is like 1s and 10s.
Is it number in Z direction now?
0. That makes it stop going vertically.
When I keep entering zeros.
Yeah.
You don't type 0, you just click the Z part. You click that part of the command. I can make it again, I'll show you. So go to panels, or paneling tool, create grid, array. So for the people that have a Mac, you have to type in, what is that command?
Alright.
Panel grid. Yeah, just type in panel grid and it's PT panel grid. Oh no, it's not.
There's a script that you just copy and paste.
No.
Array.
It made me one.
It's not PT, it's not.
It made me one script only.
What? I can't.
One for like the one.
You guys got this, right?
Yeah.
Most everyone got it? Okay. So now using the paneling tool command, it says paneling from grid. So if I make a panel 2D grid, that's just using a 2D object like a surface or a curve to then populate inside the grid. If I did a panel 3D grid, it's going to make a 3D object onto the grid. So if I'm using a panel 2D grid, it says select a paneling points grid. So it's all grouped. So I can press enter or click the grid, press enter. Then it says select a base surface or poly surface for paneling. So I can either use one that I've made myself, or if I don't have one, which I'm going to say that I don't have one right now, I'm just going to press enter. So there's an option for not having one. So I'm going to press enter. And it's automatically made my grid. And then it says pattern box, like these are all the options. So there's also, if I click that box, there's also a triangle. There's also a diamond. There's also a wave, brick, hexagon. There's many different options. So right now I'll just do box. It says,
What was the command in the graphic?
it's paneling tool, paneling from grid, panel 2D grid. So then it says like add edges, yes or no. We can keep it on yes, add faces, no. Add mesh, no, group, yes. So if I do that and I keep the settings the way that they are without changing anything, it makes a grid. What would I do with this grid? I don't know, but that's how I made a grid. If I take these points and I make them a group, right? I could then use my paneling tool, create panel grid, sorry, paneling tool, panel 2D grid. Select that, press enter. And it says select a base surface. There's no base surface, so I'm just going to press enter. And now it's making that grid and adjusting it based on where they are in that location.
For some reason, I have an error. It says selected points are not a panel grid.
Is it? Did you make it a group?
Oh, I need group it. Okay.
So for this one, I'll show you what a hexagon looks like. So it's using the hexagons instead of using each quadrant as an edge. And then maybe this one, I'll do add a mesh as a yes. What does that look like? Press enter. So now that I made it a mesh, it's actually a surface. And it also left behind the curves or the lines, right? Did I go too fast already?
Yeah.
Cool. If I pause the recording, it's just, I'm never going to remember to turn it back on. So if I go to panels, create paneling from grid, I'm going to do panel 2D grid.
It has to be grouped before that.
It should be a group. All the array has to be a group. Sorry.
I did
Yeah.
that and it still came up with an error.
When you click your points, it says 100 points added to selection.
Yeah. And then paneling from grid, panel 2D grid. Error selected points are not. Points are not always.
All right, let me stop this and I'll look at it. All right. So the next step is, say I have my own poly surface, right? My own line. Maybe it's a surface, right?
You're supposed to say no.
All right, so let's say I have my own rectangular surface. Well, all right, let's say I have my own surface, right? My own rectangle right here. I just made mine with a circle just to show you as an example. So now I can use, where to go? Paneling tool, create panel. Now I'm using panel custom 2D grid. Select the panel grid, press enter. We don't have a surface that we're making the grid from. Select curves and points. Press enter. So now it's giving me an example of what this is going to look like in between the boxes. Just like we kind of did last week when we just copied and pasted things. So I can shift these if I want to, the length, the width, the pull curves. But for right now, I'm just going to say no. I want it to be uniform throughout. So I'm just going to press, yeah, okay. And my output is the surface. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Oh, I got it.
If I want to do that again,
Is it, can we like do that if it was like 3D?
I'm getting there.
Oh. So, but you came back.
So I could do paneling, panel from grid, custom 2D, select my grid, enter, select my surface, enter.
Yeah. It was- But then, this one-
Right? For example, this is the curved version. See how it's stretching the points?
Yeah.
So from this to that. Now, this gets a little bit more complicated. Say I have another one, but this one, instead of that circle cut out, maybe it has one with a key. Right? So I have these two different surfaces. If I click here and I go to paneling tools, panel from grid, panel custom 2D variable. If there's none, press enter. Press enter to select option, pattern method, shift 1. So it's asking me to select one of the unit patterns, press enter. Select objects to define the boundary of the unit patterns, press enter if there's no bounding box. Select origin point. Hold on.
Pause the recording.
Okay. So if I'm making it 3D, all I have to do simply, there's a lot of other ways to do it, but this one is the easiest, is just take the point grids and copy them 1 unit up, or you can do more if you want to. Maybe it's better if it's 2 units up, so it has more thickness. Technically, ours is like 1.5, right? That's 18 inches. Right? Hold down all, click here, 1.5, enter. Okay. So now there's 2 grids on top of each other. One's the curvy one and one's the not so curvy one. So if I go to paneling tools, panel from grid, panel 3D grid, it will result in asking me to make sure nothing's selected, go to paneling tools, panel 3D grid. Okay, it's asking me about the add mesh, yes, add edges, box 3D. Correct. Add faces, name. All right, select first paneling points grid. That's the bottom. Add second paneling points grid. That's the top. Enter. It now created my 3-dimensional box using boxes. And I also turned the meshes on, so it gave me a group output like so. See all this junk that it made? Does that make sense?
So if there's no bonding surface, is there a bonding surface?
No, right now, no. So if I do it again, paneling tool, panel 3D grid, I select the bottom, You could do pyramids or wedges, but right now I'm just doing the box 3D. So you can select the bottom, then you select the top. Yeah, because I think the edges were on too for some reason. So it's edges, meshes, and it gave me every single option on there. You could shut some of them off and it won't give you so many outputs. So if I'm using the same command for our paneling tools, and if I use it at a panel custom 3D, right? First select the bottom grid. Select the second grid. Select two bounding surfaces and press enter when done. We don't have the bounding surfaces. Select objects. My object is this thing. This is what it's going to look like when it's done. See how there's a gap in between them? See how it says shift U1, base 1, length 1. It looks like mine isn't perfectly 2 by 2. Exactly. It's because of the ball. So that ball is going to connect them now. So if I press enter, my output is like such. What did I forget to do? I think I might have forgotten. I don't think grouping was an option, was it?
You grouped it?
Did I?
I think it's the same.
Cool. I would try to avoid clicking your like using your tiles right now. Just make a simple box just to try it out. But you can use your tile if you want to. For the assignment, I think you have to, yeah.
What if you decided to change? Then you could go back.
Did you guys do this?
Yes.
Did you?
No, I did.
We during break, you show us like a thingy.
So now the next step is, what if I have an odd shape? What if I have this, and then over here I have this, and then over here I have this, and then over here I have this. And then to make it more interesting,
Looks like the same shape exactly.
similar but different, right? And we know that if I take these two lines and I loft them, it creates this shape.
Can you do it right from that?
You guys are ruining all the surprises. Do you guys talk in a movie and like, oh, by the way, here's the ending?
Oh, I'm so guilty of that. That's me. You know, you're witnessing.
All right, so you have the two curves. You can make them whatever shape you want. Paneling tool, create paneling grid, extrude along one curve or extrude along two curves.
Can the curve look the same?
Let's see what happens when I do extrude along one curve. See how that's flat? What happens if I do extrude along two curves? Select two direction curves.
Doesn't make it.
Okay. So if you have your surface, right? Everyone's totally paying attention. You have your surface, and I lofted this, so it's going to be very similar to our objects that we have. Paneling tool, create panel, surface domain number. This is what makes the array along a surface. So it divided it up into 10 segments. If I want more, the more you have, the more denser your file will be, the smaller the scale of the pieces, right? So that's 5. I'm gonna do 5. I'm gonna do less numbers because I don't want my computer to explode. And group the output, etc. So now I can. It grouped the surface as well, right? So now I have this and I have this, right? So this is technically that surface that it keeps asking us for if we wanted to know what that surface was. So if I did paneling tool, create panel, 3D, custom 3D like we were using. Here's my grid. Oh, I forgot the offset. I'll do a 2D first. Create panel, 2D, custom 2D. I could use this as my surface. Select custom curves and points. That's this weird object I was kind of playing around with. Oh, wait, that's not joined. Uh-oh. That's this one. Enter. It's showing me the example. I'm okay with how that looks. It's going to group the output. I press OK. I now have my custom 2D shape. See how it's pointy? So if I wanted to make it 3D, I could take the array and I could copy it along one direction. I could take the whole thing and I can copy it along a direction. Right? But we know that that's just an offset, right? That there's some weird thing happening here. So I might want to move it in another direction that's a little bit more further away, kind of like this. So there's no overlapping lines. Does that make sense? If I'm looking at it in plan, I'm not going to get a weird thing happening here. Because if you just move in one direction, you still might have overlapping surfaces because of the 3D form, because I moved it in another axis. So I now have 2 surfaces, they're offset from each other. So now I can use my panel tool, panel from grid, custom 3D, select my first bounding grid, enter, select second bounding grid, enter, select my 2 bounding surfaces, and then select my object. And my object is this weird red thing over here. Press enter when done. Do I want it to be manipulated in such a manner? I can press OK. And then your computer will take a second.
And do you delete the outside walls because it follows the curve now?
And if you make sure that you put your layers on the way that they should be, you can or should be able to shut everything else off. And you can move your object out of the area. Is that cool?
Yeah.
It is. So turn everything else back on. That's essentially how to make all this cool stuff. But you'll notice that if you have this and you ungroup it, they're not joined, right? I could technically join them, I believe. Oh, not joined. Sorry, they're all continuous, right? So I could Boolean. Exactly.
Oh, no, they just make sure they stand up.
Well, I just made my code really long.
I think you wanted to like kind of.
They didn't like it.
Yeah. That's what I meant. Yeah.
So save often when you're doing this, right? Because you'll notice quickly that I could Boolean union one of these, but I cannot Boolean union most. Is it these two that I can't do it with? Yeah. So be cautious of how you're making that 3D form. All right, so now we know that we have our vessels, right? From our previous project that look like, let me make a quick bottle real quick, I guess, right? So Corbusier probably made something that looks like this at some point in some way or whatever.
Oh, are you talking about when we did like the diagram of some loft and screw with all one of those things?
Yeah, everyone's vessels.
Oh, you didn't even do that.
All right, here's my lofted object. Maybe I'll make it a little bit longer. So if I have this, right, couldn't I, here's my solid object. What you notice is that if it's a solid object, you're not going to be able to make a surface out of it because it's three-dimensional, right? So it's good that you're exploding your objects when they intersect with another one. Hold on, let me make another one. This is going to help, I promise. Right, we have the two solid objects. You guys can do this faster because you have them copied in your project, right? No, I'm just showing you an example. Even though,
Yeah.
And I'm not confident.
He's just like like candy 700 days. Yeah. Hey, yours. No, it's got to be. Look at pink brown. Yeah. You can wait up. Yeah. Basically, is that you know, like, I know we buy. No, I know we buy. You get this one. You get this one. What?
Yeah, Alex,
yes,
what's the command again for the putting the grid, the point grid on the surface?
show you one second.
All
All right, so let's say this is my object, right? I want to panel this object, but I can't because it's a three-dimensional thing, so I can explode it. So when I explode it, I will get my horizontal surface. I can always put this top and bottom back, or maybe I'm putting the panel at the top or the bottom, right? I don't know. But for right now, for example, I'm just doing the paneling on this object. That looks pretty complicated. So what am I going to do? I'm going to go to paneling tool, paneling from grid. All right, create panel, surface domain number. There's my grid. Do I want to increase it? I do. It looks like it increased it vertically, but not horizontally. I can move this back, go to 5. This one can be 20. I've now duplicated the number of points around the surface. Here is my 2D grid. You see that? So now, how do I make this panel if it's a circular object? What's an easy way I could copy the array outward? I could. Offset. I can use a distance of 2. I could also offset the surface, because this is a surface of 2. And that will result in this, but I think it made it solid by accident. So now that I did the offset tool and I didn't make it solid, I can select the outside here, do the same thing, panel, create panel grid, surface domain number, right? It's the same quantity, I press OK. Now there's my grid on the outside, there's my grid on the inside. If everything went well, I can panel custom 3D, internal, external, my 2 surfaces. It's asking me to select my object. My object is all the way over here. It's asking me, is that okay for the grid? I'm okay with that. I go back over here. I press enter. My computer gets really confused for a second. And it might very well tell me it can't. My fan just turned on. Save. Now, what did this just tell me? Right?
Be careful too for, using it.
It just told me that it does not like this curve because it was too tight. Even though it made it, I'm surprised it didn't crash.
Can you scan it or not?
You could also soften it. You might be able to manipulate the points at that point. You should be careful. And if something breaks, quote unquote, it might not be, it could be the tile that's not allowing it to be manipulated. It could be the form that you're making the tile into. My point is anything can happen. And the more that you do this, the denser your file will get. Which is why I tried to make a new file for this assignment right now. So if I look at the actual assignment, you could try both of them if you want to. So, like I said, how does this go away? Make this go away. There we go. Paneling tools, create, surface domain number. This looks like a nice collection. You can mess with the amount. So instead of 20, maybe it's 15. Instead of 5, maybe it's 10. Group, yeah. So I can also offset surface. Direction or distance is 2. Maybe I'll try it 1 to make it less thick. So maybe this is like a thinner panel. So I'll panel it the same way. I'll put these on another layer so it doesn't get confusing. Yeah, I did a lot of things to this one. Now I wish I had like more interesting panels. I'll try this one now. Yeah, that's fine. Send me.
I don't know how to. Like the Mobius strip ones.
Yeah, let's try that. So you do paneling tool, create paneling, custom panel 3D. Select the inside, enter, select the outside, enter. You can select both of the surfaces if you want to. It says select objects. I'm going to try this object now. I'm going to regret it. So how do I want to divide this? That's kind of interesting, right? What if I want them to be pushed closer together? So you can shift 1. What if that's 0? What if that's 2? So it pushes the panels further away from each other. Leave that at 1. What if I shift that 1? Doesn't do anything. 0. Just trying different things.
I just sent you the file. I imported my objects like from my old file.
Got it. You guys understand what I'm doing?
So.
It's complicated, but it's also like pretty straightforward once you get the basics.
Like once you have to like do it all this time. Like
I didn't have to show you the beginning, but I wanted you to understand how it works on a flat surface. So now I'm trying to go to that area and my computer can't even zoom out to look at it.
Why isn't it?
Yeah, you can copy and paste if they're both open. So do you see how this created this cool thing?
So we're creating a random shapes of our tiles.
Oh boy.